unit turn, which is how he loads up his body. And from this angle here, looking directly at him, and the camera is basically facing straight down the middle of the net, looking straight at him, the first thing we're going to look at is how much he turns his body. And so for his hips, face towards the camera, and from the right side, as he loads, you'll see he goes beyond perpendicular in his angle here. And you also really clearly see from this angle how his shoulders are rotated substantially more. Point out here before we move on is what he's doing with his hands, and this is a great angle to look at that. From his initial setup and ready position, you'll see that his hands come up a little bit to raise the racket head, but not a whole lot. From his ready position, his dominant hand is right about waist height. And at the top of his setup, his dominant hand is about chest height. So that we looked at. And the next element of his swing we're going to check out is the drop of his racket. And what I'd really like to point out here and emphasize is how initially, when he takes the racket back, his strings are open, they're facing upwards. As the racket starts to drop down into what people frequently refer to as the slot position, his racket face squares up. And so now his racket face is flat, it's perpendicular to the court surface. You can really see that here in this angle. He starts with his racket open. Sampras did this in a lot of racket face, and then as the racket drops is when the racket squares up and gets flat. And so let's also take a look at our final angle here. So you can see the open racket face initially, and right here, everything is squared up and the racket is perpendicular to the court surface. Okay, so moving forwards, this is a great angle to check this out. Let's go forward to the point of contact. You'll see that his racket, in all three cases, has dropped below the point of contact to come up to the ball to lift it and give it rotation. At the point of contact, we'll see his racket is right at perpendicular, maybe a couple out, finally, how his shoulders have now caught up with his hip. Flat racket face already, coming forward to contact. There's the point of contact, the extended arm. You can also see from this angle the shoulders and the hip. And let's take a look at this final angle. From this angle, his racket looks a little bit more closed. If you could see the same amount of detail, maybe we can zoom in on this. I'm not sure later on, but you can see that he made contact a little bit below the center of his racket face, which is tilting his racket face forwards a little bit. But the same as the other swings, he's nice and extended and stable, locked out with his arm, and his shoulders and his hips are in the same position. They're facing the same way. Okay, now let's go ahead and move forward to here. You'll see how here's his initial turn setup position. Watch the amount of turn he makes going into contact. Racket also starting from a loaded position here with the butt cap going towards the point of contact. Continue doing that. And that's exactly what happens. And so his chest will continue to turn forwards. His arm and his right side. See how there's kind of a rainbow or an arced path here of the tip of the racket, starting from contact and then releasing over to Roger's right side. And this is a little bit more aggressive swing than the first one. You'll see how open as he continues to follow through. And that's going to be the case for this swing as well. We'll see how this is a much more aggressive swing, and his arm and shoulder really extend and reach out to the right, which leads his body to continue opening towards the other side of the court.